This DVD will deal with the positional lines against the Pirc. I have in mind those lines in which white does not try to refute the opening. He would not try to get a mating attack as soon as possible, but rather rely on his space advantage and the right of the first move, and just develop normally. He has occupied the center with 2 pawns, as the classic players would recommend. Now he develops the knights. Most of the systems in this DVD are with knight f3. There is also the g3 system, we'll see in the end, which is related somehow. But knight f3 is played in most of the system examined here. And after developing, okay, he would develop then bishops, castle, connect rooks with queen d2 usually, and then bring the rooks in the center, rook e1 and rook a d1. This would be just a classical approach. Move orders may differ from one system to another, but that's what white tries to do. And generally speaking, black would like to get a position where he can set up this pawn wall, which would be characteristic for the Philidor defense, but also in a wider meaning for the Breyer system from the Spanish opening. The only problem is that although white did not embark any concrete action in the opening, he would always have this strong move in reserve, so black has to watch it. For instance, a hurried c6 followed by b5 would most likely run into this e5, causing some problems of coordination. Also, if black plays knight c6, then d5 is usually a normal reaction. It doesn't necessarily put black in trouble, but it creates some... there are many games like this, but white has to watch this pawn move, e5 and d5. And we'll start with what is called the classical system. Against most openings of this kind, Indian openings, let's say, where black refrains from the fight for the center in the early phase, there is a classical system based usually on knight f3 and bishop e2. White's approach is that he develops in the most natural way. He does not build up any concrete plans about attacking or space gaining. He just develops. He just develops and realizes that in the long run his advantage will stay there, because he has the center most of it and a good development. In this position, many moves have been tried. For example, I have played at least 4 or 5 of them, occasionally or on a regular basis. But I will focus on this DVD on c6, which is the most flexible of them, and I also have a lot of experience with it. This move does not look very forcing, because actually b5 is not clear if this is a threat, because usually e5 would follow with some effect. In the past, there were some players who played b5 on the next move, but like Hort, for instance, Vlastimir Hort, they had some good results with it, but it's somewhere on the edge of being a dangerous way of playing. So what are the merits of c6 then? We can see that okay, black gets some control in the center, and he clears this diagonal. Mainly he prepares this move, queen c7, which can be useful in the near future for preparing e5. And well, actually, if black really wants to solve the problems, he has to play e7, e5 at some point. And of course, the main move to threaten that would be knight bd7. Now, if I place anything neutral, then e5 would follow. It's a great game for black. But of course, there is this e5, which is a bit disturbing. For instance, this would be simply bad, because now e6 would be followed by this, with crushing position for white. With the pawn on c6, black could have played knight c7 here, and the position would have been approximately equal. White would have compensation for his pawn because of this structural defect, but nothing really wrong would be with black's position. Or if more flexibly 98, bishop f4. Again, in order to continue regrouping, black would have to play c6 and then play d takes e5 and knight c7. But if he has to play c6 anyway, why not to play it at once? And then, depending on what white will be doing, he will play knight bd7 or something else. When I started playing this system, my first years with the Pirc, I almost always played with c6. Later I switched also to bishop g4. But in Romania there was a strong group of players who declared themselves some sort of natural enemies of the Pirc. They were mainly Nisipeanu and Levente Vaida, and their coach Constantin Ionescu. They somehow consider that the classical system kills the Pirc, and they thought that white does not have to play h3. h3 and a4 are actually the main moves in this position. We'll deal with them separately, but now I want to present a little bit the map of the whole variation. So they saw that the correct move is a4. Just preventing b5 in case, because if white plays bishop e3, the problem is that now b5 is very much playable. The difference is that after e5, knight g4 is strong, it gains a tempo. So we can say that white did not achieve anything. So a4 is actually preparing bishop e3 without a loss of time, let's say, without losing the tempo on h3. Actually, I managed somehow to design a complex move order. First of all, I thought that even though the Pirc is not really a classical opening, one should follow the classic rules of developing. And, well, we should start with developing knights, not make another pawn move, not develop the queen. The bishop, it doesn't make so much sense to play bishop g4, because now the fight for the d4 square is not possible anymore, because knight c6 is unavailable. So the main discussion is between knight bd7 and queen c7. So I thought that knight bd7 would be the move. And well, for instance, there was such a line which I liked very much. And now I wanted to play very, very flexibly. Knight to bishop b7. We can see that white is allowed to do all kind of things in the center. Well, I don't explain this line very much because it will not be actually part of the repertoire, but just to show that why I abandoned this whole setup based on the knight bd7. Now I was very much attracted by such a game, in which Eugenio Torre found this very interesting exchange sacrifice. White didn't take it at once, but he had to take it later anyway. Knight g5, knight f8, and actually, knight f8, and actually, black has a fantastic position. He has one pawn for the exchange and very strong play on light squares, and he eventually won. This is Murșet Torre. The problem is that here I had also analyzed this move and even played it on a couple of occasions. Here, of course, white has consolidated his space advantage. For black, it's not so easy it will take some time to regroup. He needs the c7 square for his knight, but queen c6 would run into bishop f3, so it's not obvious how to continue. So I had analyzed the move bishop h6, which, according to my understanding, would solve black's problems. The threat is to win a pawn by taking on e5 twice. This move creates a pin. And well, for instance, Braga played against me this, and I got a fantastic position. I mean, slightly better. just to take. Obviously, from white center, only ashes have remained. There are mainly weaknesses. Black has at least more present play. And also, for instance, if rook f3 defending the bishop, then f5 would become very, very, very annoying. Or actually, no, d takes e5. D takes e5, and now somehow black's pieces come to life. But I discovered that there is this very strong move. Just discovered it recently. The problem is that the sacrifice on e5 does not work because queen h4 would win material. I mean the pseudo sacrifice. And if knight g7, hoping to meet queen h4 with knight f5, then g4. And somehow black does not have space. He will be just killed by his clear advantage for white. A lot of space and better coordination. And so I understood that maybe the Pirc is that kind of opening in which these classic rigid rules should not be applied blindly, like for instance here developing first the knight. And you will see later that I actually focused on the move queen c7. Actually, I have noticed this tendency. I saw a recent game by Ivanchuk. He beat Hare Krishna. We'll see the game later. There are some other games. Queen c7 is quite a good move. The main idea is that this diagonal is kept open for the moment when these exchanges will take place in the center. So by now we'll just keep this position in mind. And also about h3, which is the other important move. Here I also played knight d7, as I said, and d5 for the following line. The problem is that now e5 is, let's say, a bit. I played several games with it. I have good results, but somehow I scored +1 with quite strong opposition. Knight e8, bishop f4. But somehow I feel it's not so simple. I have written an article for Chess-Based magazine. You will find it on this DVD. But I don't. I would like to avoid this. And then again, against h3, queen c7 comes in very handy. The idea is the same, to threaten e5, and e5 we'll see that this is less disturbing than after knight bd7. It doesn't offer white any shadow of an advantage. So this is now the introduction. There are also some other moves, rook e1, we'll deal with them separately, bishop f4. But for the time being, I just wanted to announce this change of strategic thinking of mine. Knight bd7 is not necessarily the best move. We'll be here oriented on this early queen c7, which is a little bit paradoxical. The whole queen side is undeveloped, and we move the queen. But the position does not have a force character yet, so black seems to afford playing such moves. It's also actually a question in the Sicilian. Many times, in the classic Scheveningen, for instance, many times black plays queen c7 at an earlier stage than usual because he has certain goals in mind. And if in such an opening like the Sicilian or the Paulsen, the queen gets on c7 on move 5 or 6. I mean, if in such open and more or less forced lines, queen c7 is a move, why shouldn't it be in an opening where there is no piece contact yet? We can see that the fifth rank is completely empty. So that's all for the introduction.